Has an ex leaked naked photos of you after a relationship gone south? Today we're combing through the Texas revenge porn statute and the significance of this law in the society of today's sharing and resharing. Welcome back to Hashtag Lawyered, everybody. We got the A-team here, and today we're talking about literally a sexy subject. Revenge porn.
Literally. Guys, we're talking porn today.
We are. And, you know, when I was in law school, if you had told me that revenge porn was going to become a thing, first off, actually have a title and a name, but also become something that people are actually doing in today's society, I would have told you were crazy. But over the last 8 years, the development of this tactic has caused legislators to decide to criminalize this and also create some remedies for people to sue people for it.
Thank God, though, because we live in a digital age.
Yeah.
And don't get me started on like kids. We'll talk about that.
Dive into that.
We'll dive into that later.
Yeah.
But everything is on our phones. And guys, when something is on your phone, it's on there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go away once it's on the internet.
Right. And there are still ways to find it on Snapchat. We'll talk about that in a little bit too.
There is?
Yeah, there is.
Oh, my cat photos.
Right. Yeah, well, okay. That's a lot more innocent than what we're talking about today. But,
yeah.
You know, and so first off, let's describe and identify what revenge porn is. And you see there's a lot of, and I laugh at these memes, but there's a lot of these sin nudes memes that are around. And because, let's just be honest, and it happens more with women, but women these days are sending a lot more naked photos of themselves to men. And men are asking for and expecting that. And it happens both sides, but I'm just saying predominantly it's what we hear about.
Yeah, and that's what your experience has been, right?
Right. My experience.
As like a professional, wow, guys, I'm so sorry.
I was going to just let that play out, you know? Just let that play out. Let's just see if Andrea realizes what she just accused me of, but that's fine. As
a lawyer,
though. No, absolutely. Well, and to be honest, as a lawyer, but also I've got a role advising, you know, a couple different young college groups and things, and you hear about this stuff, especially at the collegiate level, because honestly, a lot of college students, myself included, felt that we were invincible back in the day. And so these things in the moment when you post a naked picture of your ex-girlfriend on your fraternity chapter's Facebook page.
Which you never did.
Well, I never did. No, I'm talking about things I've heard about just from my role as an advisor with different groups.
Yeah.
Post this picture to this page of your ex-girlfriend to get back at her. All you're thinking about is, hey, look at this. This is funny. And you don't think about the stuff we're about to talk about. But then that's what revenge porn is. There's a lot of times where in today's society, people send naked photos of themselves to their paramour, to their boyfriend, girlfriend, or videos or whatever it is. And then the act of revenge porn is taking that, and then you receive that knowing that it was private and it was only intended for your use, and they weren't trying to publicize it. They weren't making a pornographic movie or anything like that. But you take that media and you post it somewhere else, or you share it to somebody, send it to them, text it, email, whatever. That's revenge porn. And it's been going on for a while.
That is a pretty broad definition.
It is. And not all of that conduct is criminalized, and we'll get into that. But the topic of revenge porn, you know, that's what it means. It's basically you're trying to get back at somebody by trying to humiliate, embarrass them with something they sent you when they didn't expect anybody else to see it. Which, obviously, we can understand why that would be extremely traumatic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh,
Yeah, because, you know, and especially... And again, we deal with this in Facebook, GroupMe threads, Snapchat group chats, you know, Instagram group chats, all those types of
Instagram
things.
stories. I'm sure like maybe someone's probably going to pop something on Reels soon that is like really inappropriate. And I mean, Instagram and Google can try to take it down. But I mean, the thing is that once something is out there and it's on Google, right, it's hard to take it down. Maybe Google will take it down, but because of, and I'm no engineer, right? But how the internet works, I sound like a boomer, sorry. But it exists on like other platform or hosts.
Yeah. Well, and let's just think about it this way. I mean, someone can very easily screenshot something.
Yeah.
And so someone puts a tweet up or someone sends out a Snapchat and you screenshot it. Okay, well, guess what? They got a copy of it now.
Yeah.
And so even if you take it down or it disappears on Snapchat,
it can come back.
It's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there. And we're going to talk specifically about Texas today. There are 46 other states that have laws about revenge porn.
Not all of them? Only 46?
Not all of them. Only 46. Now, and the good thing is there was 36 back in 2017 whenever this subject first kind of got big.
Okay.
So we got another 10 states that have jumped on board.
Oh, thank goodness.
But before 2014, there was not a whole lot people could do if they were victims of this. I mean, we can call it a crime now.
Because it's literally now a crime.
Literally is a crime. And in 2014, and we're gonna, like I said, we're going to talk Texas, but the legislator in 2014 created what's now Texas Penal Code 21.16, which is legal terminology. It's the unlawful disclosure or promotion of intimate visual material. And basically, and I want to read straight from this because the paraphrase is important, is that if a person posts or sends an intimate picture of themselves to someone else, usually girlfriend sending to boyfriend, and then that boyfriend posts that picture let me back up. They send the picture with the expectation it's going to remain private.
Yeah.
The idea that we're talking, I'm going to send you a picture, this is going to be between you and I, and it's an intimate photo. And the person who receives it, they post it with the intention to harm the victim.
And that's really important, the intention.
That's the important part, and we'll get into some of the more nuances of that in a second. But the idea is that you're doing this to get back at them. You're trying to get revenge on them. Now, there's another caveat to this, too, that we'll get into, but you also commit a crime if you threaten to do that in exchange for something. So blackmail with the photo, which I think is good that that's there, too.
That is really good.
The big thing that's important about this is that this is a state jail felony in Texas. That means it's punishable by up to 2 years in prison.
Dang!
Not jail, prison, and up to a $10,000
You want to explain the difference for some of our listeners there?
So when people hear jail, that's county jail. That's for misdemeanor crimes that are less severe, like DWIs, marijuana possession.
Drunk in public.
Those types of things. County jail is county jail. You're here in the county. You're with other people who have committed very nonviolent, non-serious crimes. Most people end up staying there for very short periods of time. Usually they get out on probation, all that kind of stuff.
They're not about to get shanked.
Right. Prison is like the movie style, intense, hardcore prison. That's for people who are convicted of felonies. And that's the intense stuff. That's the big boy jail,
Big boy jail, huh?
And so this revenge porn statute says that you're up in felony world if you commit the offense. So it's not like a slap on the wrist, kind of a not going to affect your future kind of thing. It's you're in felony world.
So if you send revenge porn and you get convicted of it, you're in prison with people who have literally murdered people.
Correct. Could be.
Could be.
I mean, in our criminal law 101, we talked about you can get probation, all that stuff. But you could be. That's the range of punishment that you could potentially be looking at.
Dang, guys, don't post naked pictures of your ex because you could be hanging out with murderers.
Right. So I think one of the couple of really important points that I want to point out about the way the statute is written, the criminal statute, is one, like you said, Andre, you have to intend to harm the person.
Definitely.
And that's something that's part of the reason that it got bumped up to a felony is that you got to show that they intended to harm. Two, if you try to threaten them with it. We talked about that. The other part that I think is really important, and I really commend the legislature for really, you can tell they really consulted with people who understand how this stuff has proliferated social media. Yeah. Because there's routinely people send pictures, nude pictures of someone from like the neck down. You can't see their face. And so the culprit's going to say, well, you can't identify who that person is. And so you can't say actually harm them. Statute says if there's a third party or through some other extra information, there's some way to identify that person, doesn't matter. You committed the crime anyways. Okay,
that is really interesting because I feel like that actually works around a lot of law, like almost like hearsay law that we have, or like when you're looking at a document, you're supposed to look at just the document, not like other information, like parole evidence, if you will. Right. Wow, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And that's why I really commend the legislature, because you can tell they talk to some people who are experts in this field, psychologists, things like that say, well, look, this happens all the time. And people think, okay, well, it's a neck down photo. They can't do it. But, there's plenty of ways where somebody who's a friend of the person can identify like that. Yeah, that's her. There's a birthmark, whatever. There's ways to do that.
Or so let me just give you a hypothetical, right? So say Susie Q's in love with her boyfriend, thinks they're getting married, and then nasty breakup, and she had sent him pictures because she thought they were getting married, and Susie Q has a little star tattoo on her hip.
Right.
Okay, so breakup happens, and he posts this to Instagram Reels because he's a horrible, awful human being. And one of her friends is like, oh my gosh, I've gone to the beach with Susie Q. I know she has a star on her left hip because I can see it while she's in her swimsuit.
Right.
I know that's Susie Q. And so at that point, I mean, that would qualify, right?
It would.
Because she's identifiable?
It would. It would.
So what if then, so what other way would they be able to say she doesn't have like a birthmark or tattoo, but, you know, he told his friend that, oh yeah, that's Susie Q that I posted the picture of.
So that's one way. You know, there's other things that I've read about where someone can say, well, yeah, I know Susie Q's bed. That's her bed in the background. That's her alarm clock. That's a picture. That's her computer. I've seen her use that before. So any third-party identifiable piece of information that can lead to the identifying the victim in the photo, that gets you there. And
even if it's like her driver's license plate or whatever.
Right. Yeah, any of those things. And the thing about that is that really imitates real life, because in real life, because the idea is you're trying to criminalize the person humiliating the victim in front of others. Well, okay, if take the law part out of it, if other people know what her dorm room looks like, then they know it's her, and so then she is humiliated. And so the legislature said, okay, well, look, if other people can figure it out and then she suffers the humiliation, then that we're going to be able to use that to punish this person who did this.
Well, whoever was doing the consulting for the legislature on this, like, bravo. That's awesome.
For sure. No, I 100% agree. And they went a step further, too. So that's the criminal side. You know, the person who does that can be arrested, charged with the felony. In the Civil Practices and Remedies Code, which is it's a body of laws that we have here in our state that establishes different ways you can sue somebody in a lot of areas. They established what's in Chapter 98B, the same statutory language, so the same language that we just talked about publish a photo that was sent to you with the expectation it was going to be private, with the intent to harm him. It was an intimate photo. It spells out that the person who is harmed can actually collect actual damages, including mental anguish. We'll talk about that in a second. Reasonable attorney's fees and costs to court, and exemplary damages, which, more common term, punitive damages.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
That's where the big money comes in these lawsuits.
Oh, yeah.
And the big thing about this is that, as you know, Andrea, mental anguish, pain and suffering, those are damages. A lot of people, they hear about them all the time, and historically, before everything changed with the way personal injury suits went.
Tort reform.
Those types of damages for pain and suffering and mental anguish were far more prevalent in a lot of our lawsuits. And now they're not. And they're actually expressly removed from a lot of lawsuits.
Yeah.
So the fact that the legislature said, no, this is absolutely something you can collect on is important.
And I think people need to understand too, for those of our listeners who are not lawyers, right, the concept of punitive damages versus just regular damages, right, compensatory damages. So say there are, compensatory damages are like generally broad strokes trying to make you whole or trying to like compensate you, right, for the harm that you suffered. Okay, well, punitive damages are literally the court saying, no, we're going to make you pay extra to make this sting. So this is a learning lesson for you, and it's an incentive for you not to engage in this sort of behavior.
Right.
I mean, they're literally punishing you by making you pay more money so you don't do this bad behavior.
And it's a deterrent for other people to not do it as well. And that's where you get large judgments and large monetary value settlements, things like that. And there's a case that the law came out in 2014. Okay. There was a case that started in 2013 and it wasn't actually decided, and the opinion actually issued until 2016. You know how long these cases take to go through.
They take a while.
They do. And so the name of the case, it's Patel versus Hussein. It's out of the 14th District Court, which is in Houston. And so basically what happened was we had Nadia Hussein. She broke up with her ex-boyfriend, Patel. He then went on a downward spiral of calling her, texting her, emailing her. Spurned ex was just,
clingy.
Somewhat, little bit. I mean, you can't say stalker because he wasn't showing up at her house too much, but he was he was obsessing over her, and obviously was really upset about the breakup.
Clearly,
well, his reaction was when she didn't return. In my words, when she didn't return the admiration, he resorted to extreme measures. He started publishing on YouTube and on other social media outlets pictures and videos of intimate material that she had sent him. Naked photos, her performing sexual acts on video.
Oh my gosh.
All types of stuff. Really embarrassing things.
This poor girl.
Yeah. And he starts throwing this up all over YouTube, all over social media. And eventually, thankfully, she sued him.
Yeah.
And she sued him.
As she should.
Right. And so she sued him for invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, obviously, and defamation.
And defamation. That's an interesting one.
And I think part of that came from some of the captions and things that he was putting on the post.
Oh, I see.
And I don't remember the exact content, but I think he was making false statements about her on these sexually explicit posts.
I see.
And saying some things that were false. And so jury awards her $345,000.
Okay.
As damages for this, and that includes the mental anguish and the punitives that we were talking about a second ago. And for our listeners, a lot of times when there's a big jury award like that, the person who gets sued ends up appealing that to the appellate court, and they say this is outside the bounds of reason.
Yeah.
Appellate court knocked this number down, and so it ends up in the 14th District Court of Appeals in Houston. And the 14th District did a great job of really narrowing this down, and it ended up really supporting the statutes that were enacted that we just talked about a second ago. And they basically came out and said, you know what? The actions didn't rise to the level of intentional infliction of emotional distress or defamation, but they absolutely were an invasion of privacy. And
there we go.
The judge said, and the judge also said, the appellate court also said that the evidence of the change in her day-to-day life, the fact that she didn't want to go out with friends anymore, that she was in extreme intensive therapy, and just all the different changes that she went through, that was evidence enough to support mental anguish damages and pain and suffering enough to support that $345,000 judgment, and it got upheld.
Wow, I'm very impressed.
Right.
Because that is not something that I would have thought would have gotten upheld,
right.
frankly, at least under the law prior to what we discussed earlier, which was the civil version of the revenge porn law.
Right, exactly. Well, because typically, in my experience, whenever you're dealing with mental anguish, the only thing I've really seen stick counseling, they had to go to counseling, there's bills there, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The fact that they allowed, because again, going back to reality, if someone goes through that, their day-to-day life's going to change, especially at a young age, because I believe she was I think she was around 17, I think she was around 19, 20
I was
years
like,
old.
A minor? No.
I think she was around 19, 20, 21 years old.
She's an adult.
Young adult, but still, that's something that can be very hard to recover from and deal with.
Oh, absolutely. You're still young, you're developing, this person that you trusted so much to send very private material to you is turning around and stabbing you in the back in the worst way possible. Like, that, oof.
Yeah.
Poor girl.
And they used, some of her friends testified that, she changed significantly. She never went out with us anymore. And the Houston court said that this was a substantial disruption and a high degree of mental pain enough to uphold those mental anguish damages. And the other thing that I thought was really important, that's extremely salient for just social media users today, is that the Houston court held that because Patel posted the pictures on social media, the jury could conclude that these images and the pain associated with them will cause future mental anguish, as the pictures could be distributed elsewhere, and it'd be near impossible to find and complete all of them, or find and delete all of them.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Future damages. Right.
Which is hard to get.
That I have the only time I ever see future damages being awarded is like for future medical bills. Right. And that's, I see that because I do a lot of aviation incidents, right? Helicopter, airplane goes down, right? Someone has, disfigurement or whatever from being burned by fuel, right? So they're going to have to go forward and have a bunch of surgeries in the future to fix the skin.
Right.
Yeah. So that's future medical damages, but future's soft. So I call soft damages like mental anguish and basically things that are really hurting you mentally or your emotions. I call those kind of soft, squishy damages.
Right, because you don't have a bill that says this is what it cost, and so it's a little it's kind of more malleable.
With skin grafts and plastic surgery to fix a burn, you have literally bills from the plastic surgeon saying this is the surgery I performed. It was necessary, because she would have suffered blah blah blah, and this is how much it cost me to do the skin grafts and to complete the surgery and to give her the appropriate medication and anti-infection cream or what have you.
Right. Versus here, the jury was allowed to consider this is the future pain she's going to suffer.
Wow.
This is the future trauma she's going to have to go through therapy for. And again, it goes back to the legislature, the court in this situation, really looking at the reality of what's going on. Anybody can screenshot something and then it's still there. You can still disseminate it. You can still throw it out there. And so the pain can still happen. And so I really think this is a great example. We criticize our legislature and our courts all the time because it's what we do. But this is a great example of really them kind of taking, I almost say, the lawyer hat off and really looking at how does this really affect people? And so how do we really need to categorize it, punish it, and award it for damages?
And in a really effective way, too, I feel. I mean, it's just very realistic. This whole, the way the entire statute is written.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. So there was one wrinkle to this that happened in 2018, 2019. Now, we already talked about the fact that you have to intend to harm the victim when you publish this.
Yes.
Originally in 2014, when the statute was enacted, you didn't have to have that intention. It was just
if you published it.
It was just if you published it, boom. Now, back then it was a misdemeanor.
Oh, okay.
So in 2018, there was in Tyler, the East Texas court ruled that this was challenged on free speech grounds because the person.
Are you kidding me? Free speech?
Well, the reason it was on the criminal side. The reason it was challenged. I'm not defending this. I'm just explaining.
Of course.
The reason it was challenged is because
shoot the messenger.
Right. The reason it was challenged is because ex-boyfriend sends the nude picture to fraternity brother. Fraternity brother sends it out. The fraternity brother is punished just like the ex-boyfriend was. Mm-hmm. The free speech, the Tyler Court of Appeals said you can't criminalize that if there's no mental intent to harm the person, and so that infringes upon that person's arguably their free speech rights. The legislature acted real quickly because that happened in 2018. 2019, new law comes out. They say you have to intend to harm the victim, which is really that punishes the ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, it does.
It does. Now, that doesn't mean that the buddy who sends it out, he can still intend to harm. And so you could still round him up too.
Okay.
So it doesn't curb that, but what they also did is they also said, okay, well, fine, we'll put the intent to harm in there. Mm-hmm. We're also bumping this up to a felony.
Good. Well, okay, I'm glad it got bumped up to a felony, so and that you can still get that real crappy friend of the ex-boyfriend.
Right. You can. You just have to prove the intent. And again, I think that was kind of the trade-off of, okay, we really are trying to criminalize someone who's intending to hurt somebody because that's the whole point.
Absolutely.
But if you're going to make us jump through this extra hoop, okay, well, they're going to go to felony world now, and it's going to be
big boy jail.
Yeah, it's going to be
prison.
Different.
Excuse me.
Right. Well, I think they're interchangeable. I use them both. Okay. Now, here's something, and I've actually spoken to middle school and high school boys about this. I've been asked to come and talk to different groups.
And this is like a huge deal.
It is.
This is really big.
Because revenge porn, then, we talk about it right now, like with the Patel and Hussein case. Like I said, I believe she was 19, 20, 21.
An adult. Which is extremely important. You remember I freaked out when you said 17.
And the reason is because in high school, kids are sending these pictures too.
Yeah.
And in people's mind, on the surface, you think, okay, well, it's a minor and it's a minor. Well, the fact is, if a minor possesses a naked picture of another minor, doesn't matter that the person who possesses it is a minor. We're talking about child pornography now. And
there is a zero tolerance in Texas and at the federal level for child pornography.
Right.
And if you are Snapchatting it, right, you're sending this over Instagram DMs or WhatsApp. Can the FBI get involved? Because now possibly, right, what if one minor is on vacation in New York? I don't know, the Hamptons, and the other one is, back here at home in Dallas, and, the girl sending naked pictures to her boyfriend, they're both 16. Now you're crossing state lines.
You are, but I'll even simplify it for you more than that.
Okay.
The fact that the app is used across the country, the courts have ruled that that's enough to get you the interstate commerce part. And so the reason we're talking about this is...
dang,
yeah,
okay.
So the reason we're talking about this is because for something to be federal versus state, you've got to have some kind of hook to get it in there. One of those is crossing state lines, like you were talking about.
Federal hook.
Right. But if the software system is used by users in other areas and it's accessible by other people, you've hit that crossing state lines boundary, even though maybe it's somebody from Texas, from El Paso to Lubbock or whatever.
Yeah.
You're still using an app or a peer-to-peer sharing system that is capable of crossing state lines. Therefore, courts have ruled that's enough of a hook to bring you in, especially on something like this.
Jeez, that's crazy in a good way.
It is. I agree. And just to kind of give people some background, and look, nobody likes talking about child pornography, but it's important to understand how this factors into everything. And you mentioned zero tolerance. A lot of these, historically, many images and videos of child pornography from people who are actually, I'm not talking about the minor to minor situation.
Yeah, we're not talking about the, almost accidental, if you will.
Well, we'll get to that in a second, some more in depth. But most of the time, and a lot of us did this, not the pornography thing. A lot of us use these music downloading systems like Napster, Kazaa, LimeWire, all these things back in high school and middle school where you could pirate music and download all these kind of things. Andrea, you probably never did. I'll admit, a lot of me and my classmates use these things.
Back in the day.
A lot of these child pornography well, a lot of the distribution of child pornography occurs on these peer-to-peer sharing systems, not the ones I just listed, but the ones...
Because those were music.
Those are music, and these are ones that are set up specifically for this. Ugh. So the way that it's criminalized, though, is that, you hear about someone who's charged with 2 counts of possession of marijuana. That means that they've got... 2 counts of possession of a controlled substance means that they've got 2 different controlled substances, and so it's like cocaine, methamphetamine, and they're charged with 2 different charges. If you just got cocaine, you're only going to get charged once. Oh, well, okay. The way the child pornography works, which is the way it should work, is that each specific image and reshare or re-download of that one specific image is a different count of child pornography. So you could have one photo that ends up with 230 counts of child pornography, which is 230 different criminal charges, because it was reshared or re-downloaded or whatever.
Wow.
Which, again, is the way it should be.
It should be that way.
Because, again, I mean, it's kind of the same idea with the revenge porn idea, is that each iteration of that is causing more harm.
Absolutely.
Because it's proliferating and all that. So, in the federal system, standard penalties for first-time offenders that are producing child pornography, they're looking at 15 to 30 years, 5 to 20 years for first-time offenders that are possessing it. And anybody who's a repeat offender, or there's an enhanced act such as there's sadistic or violent images or some type of abuse that looks like it went on, they're pretty much they're looking at life at that point. Which is the way it should be.
It should be that way. But I mean, I think people really need to understand just mere possession can land you, what you said, 5 to 20 years.
5 to 20.
Jeez.
And look, and a lot of the, go back to the high school and middle school situation.
I wanted to bring it back to the kids.
Yeah, because that's what I've talked to groups about. We've had dads that get concerned because...
As they should be.
Because these kids don't understand what they're doing. And quite candidly, and not being funny here, but like the dads don't understand, I don't understand what Snapchat is. What is this? I don't get how they're sharing this stuff. It doesn't make any sense.
And they're like, oh, but it disappears. It's fine, right?
Right. And it's not fine. Trust me, the FBI can find stuff. They're pretty good at it. But that's the problem is that, these, say, 15-year-old boys, let's just run down the revenge porn storyline.
Sure.
Girlfriend sends naked photo. She's 15. Boyfriend who's 15 publishes that photo, sends that photo, posts it on a private Facebook group. He's committed child pornography. And the problem is he may have to go through the juvenile system if he gets caught. He may not. He may get charged as an adult. And then you just heard everything we just talked about there.
Okay, and bring that back. He might get charged as an adult.
Because depending on how vicious the act is, and that's a completely judgment call. You hear about kids getting charged as adults when they're 17 or 16 and they murder somebody and that kind of deal. I mean, The state has the ability to decide whether to prosecute them as an adult. The defense can take that up on appeal if they don't think it's fair, and the appellate court can decide. But they could get charged as an adult for possessing and distributing child pornography when they thought it was someone their age and they didn't think twice about that.
That blows my mind. I actually didn't know that they could get charged as an adult for that.
They could, and it's scary.
That is scary. And I mean, my gosh, I feel like most parents don't know that, and that would probably terrify the socks off of them.
Right. Terrifies me. I don't even have kids.
I know. I don't have a kid either, and I'm freaking scared.
Right.
But it's crazy how much this goes on. I mean, this happened when my little sister was a freshman in high school. She came home and was telling me this story about she had heard from a friend of a friend that one of the freshman girls had been sending naked photos to an older boy who was still a minor. Right. I mean, but the girl was 14 and he was 17. And he was apparently had just moved to Florida or was there on vacation with his family or whatever. And then Elena told me, she's like, oh yeah. And her mom was freaking out. And I was like, well, what do you mean her mom was freaking out? She's like, well, I heard that so-and-so's mom was like, I need to see what's going on. And so the daughter texted the naked photos, because there was naked photos of the girl and the boy, to the mother.
Yeah.
And I was like, Elena, you need to tell your friend to tell her mom or friend's mom, whatever, delete that.
Yeah.
Even though the mom was trying to be protective and understand what's going on, she's committing the crime. She's committing the crime of possession of child pornography, and that can land her in prison.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of parents don't understand that. And so they're like, you need to send me what's going on. Send it to me right now. You don't want to do that. What do you do? What do you do as a parent in that situation?
I'll be honest, I don't know if I have good advice for that. I mean, I think don't send it from your phone. You need to report it if it's happening.
Immediately.
I mean, that's the thing. I say I don't have good advice. You need to report it. It's hard to do if it's in the possession of your child. You know? I mean, now, and again, that's different. If she sends the photo to your son and he doesn't distribute it, that's not his fault that she sent it to him. So that's not, he's not going to get in trouble for that. But
can he delete it immediately if he gets this photo?
He can, but you need to figure out a way to log the fact that he received it and didn't do anything with it. you know? And honestly, safest advice is probably to report it to authorities and just so that you're covered.
And just like, be like, here's my phone, take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a tough situation. It's not good. And a lot of people just, it's become so commonplace. Mainly we're talking about, you know, people who are not, you know, who are 18 plus, who are adults.
Yeah.
But it's become so common, and that's the danger in a lot in our society is when something becomes so common, people get numb to it, and then they don't think about, okay, what am I actually exposing myself to as far as potentially criminal charges and things like that.
And I mean, it can ruin these kids' lives, and they have no idea.
Well, and there's a story you and I were talking about right now that's going on, and this is more intense than just the revenge porn situation, but there's a current star from this Netflix show Cheer that he's being detained right now without bond.
Jerry.
In Chicago.
Jerry. Matt talking Jerry, who literally made the show because he was so positive and so upbeat, and he was kind of an underdog, and we were all cheering for him. I was cheering for him to make it to Matt.
And he's being held in Chicago right now.
For
soliciting minors and for possession of child pornography because he has naked photos on his phone of 13, 14-year-old. I think it's boys.
I think it's boys.
Yeah, and he solicited a lot of these photos and videos from minors at cheerleading competitions, and you know his situation far more egregious than what we were just talking about because he's actively as I almost said major as an adult soliciting minors, but you know it happens a lot. I mean, there's one of my favorite comedians, Chris D'Elia, is being accused right now of trying to solicit sex from a lot of minors while he's out on tour and all this kind of stuff. So stuff happens a lot more than we realize, unfortunately. But the big thing that we're stressing right here, I think probably the most important message is you don't use this as revenge.
No, don't.
It's not a good way. You're not going to win in the end.
No, you're
not going to get the last laugh. And second, you got to educate your kids about this. It's a weird conversation to have. But you got to talk to them about this kind of stuff because they could be stepping into something they don't realize they're stepping into if they receive and send out these photos.
And they have no idea. Why would they know?
Right.
Why would any little 14-year-old know that, like, Susie Q sending a picture of her without her top on could land her in jail?
Right.
Or not Susie Q, but land the receiving child in jail.
Well, and let's just be completely honest here. As a young male going through puberty and, like, testosterone flying around, like, you're probably excited about receiving that picture. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Like,
I don't know. I'm a girl, so.
I'm just saying, they probably are. They're probably bragging to their friends about it, all that kind of stuff. And they don't realize that this is bigger than what they're dealing with because they're a kid and they don't understand this stuff. And so, not trying to, like, slap all our listeners with a heavy subject, but that's just something everybody needs to be aware that it's not just ha funny or, oh, that's disgusting. It's, oh, no, we're talking about felonies and possible child pornography and prison time and all this kind of stuff.
And again, zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance. So I think that's the first big message. The second is if you're a victim of this, you absolutely have a way to vindicate what happened to you. No one's ever going to be able to fix what happened or completely make you whole, but you have a way, both criminally and civilly, to vindicate your rights, enforce your legal rights, try to receive some compensation to help you cope with what you went through.
And in doing so, if you can be brave and do that, you're going to be helping others in that situation.
100%.
Because then the individuals in your community, in your circle, are going to see you stepping up, saying that this isn't okay, and that is an incentive to others to not engage in those bad acts.
Absolutely. So I think you and I both agree. Our legislature did a great job putting this together. I think our Court of Appeals did a great job analyzing and holding this, keeping that judgment in place and really making sure that victim, specifically her rights, were taken care of so that people in the future are protected as well.
Absolutely. Austin, heavy subject.
Heavy subject. Obviously you can tell I'm passionate about it because I think it's absolutely terrible when it happens.
It is. And I think it's really important that children are aware.
For sure. 100%. So thank you for being here on #Lawyered again. Stay tuned for our closing argument. We're going to talk about Brian Callen and his latest encounter with the Me Too movement.
Hey y'all, thank you so much for listening to #Lawyered today. But wait, before you go, we want to make sure that you know where to find us on all the socials. So catch up with us on the audiovisual portion on YouTube. We have a #Lawyered channel there that we're very excited for you to take a look at if you want to put some faces to names. I know I love doing that. Make sure to follow us on our Instagrams, whether it be the #Lawyered Instagram or Austin's and my personal Instagrams. We check all three, so make sure to DM us or frankly leave comments on all of our latest posts to make sure that we're covering the topics that you guys are interested in. And if you have any questions or you're like, hey, I heard this in the news today, I think it's really interesting, I kind of want you and Austin to break it down for me and give the legal perspective so that I am well equipped at my next dinner party or Zoom cocktail hour, COVID and all that, to be able to discuss this with my friends. So again, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform that you're listening to. And we are so thankful that you're listening, and tune back in next week. Bye, y'all.
Catherine Tigerman accused comedian Brian Callen of rape, and now her husband is apparently trying to ruin his life. Brian vehemently denies these rape allegations, but Catherine's husband is now calling talent agencies, studios, and imploring them to fire him because of this guy's sexual history and the rape that he committed on his wife. Brian's suing him for interfering with these contracts, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, especially in light of the Me Too movement.